Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All Now with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Sean. How you doing today, sir?
Hi there, Alex. I'm fine, thank you. Nice to be here.
Good, good, good. So, can you introduce yourself for a quick second, and then we'll get into the questions?
Yeah, sure. I'm a writer, artist, and musician here in England, and just I've had 9 books out. I've just published my 9th book, A Delicate Balance of Reason, and yes, I'm. And I do things in a lot of alternative music and on the alternative sort of side of cultural theory. So that's my main frame.
Okay. So, not 9 books, man. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's great, though. That's great. So, can you share? Well, actually, what inspired you to pursue your master's degree in fine art?
That was in 1997, and just after my dad died in that year, quite young. I was 22 and he's 67. I just decided to pursue things that I wanted to do at that stage, as one does when you have a young grief situation. So I'm like, right, I'm going to stick to doing a degree for a change. And it took me 6 years to do the degree and then the master's at the end of it, which I don't know. When you're doing a degree, you never know how much worth it really is when you're there. But afterwards, it becomes this kind of passport in life, as we all sort of know. I don't know about what I learned, anything that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. But yeah, it was pretty much Dad going and me deciding that I do love art. I know I'm going to do this forever. Let's do this now seriously for a couple of years whilst I'm young. That's why.
So how do you feel that you're you going through that phase, getting your master's degree? How do you feel that it shaped your creative journey?
I think it helps in order to make what you do seem more serious and to give things a more finely honed focus. So it's like if you're like into creativity, then you can go more sort of seriously on something and go, I can actually make this thing matter in the world rather than be more of a hobbyist thing. Though nothing wrong with hobbyism, and everyone's a little bit like that. I think doing the degrees and things help you to turn it into a system and to go, actually, this thing I've just done, if I want, is as important as designing a jumbo jet to save people's lives. Maybe this painting is as important as that too. That's the mentality you have to go with, and to trust your own creativity and to go, I can do that. It's got some worth, and that then gives it depth the more and more you do it.
Okay, so you lived in Istanbul for about a decade or so. Do you feel like that had any influence on your artistic expression?
Yeah, I think so. That isn't the reason that I went there. It wasn't intended to enrich me or anything. But when you live in a culture which is very divorced from your own, as sort of Turkey is to England, you can't help but be immersed in all those influences. I was sort of chiefly a musician out there, so I was doing lots of things in the music world from within a very big city. So that was great, and you're able to go and get to do things and to talk to the people you need to do, and also to have the hubbub of humanity around you. And that can go with a lot of. If you're on a downward spiral, being in any big city is a dangerous place to be because it can get quickly worse, as everybody throughout the years has known, And so that is a risk that I saw happen to some expats out there who will drink too much. And but I was also enjoying myself, but able to pull things back as always into the focus of creativity, which is important. So, but what I mostly met out there was people from all over the world because it's that kind of a city hub. Lots of my friends were Americans and of all different races and ages, up to about 60. But from every country, and that was really mind-opening. Not that I hadn't known lots of different people from different countries before here, but there's more there because lots of them are out teaching and lots of them out there doing other creative things. So it's a great place for that.
Okay. So you gave a TEDx talk titled "Stammering and Creativity." Can you share quickly, the central message behind that and how it resonated with the audience?
That's right. Yeah, I did. That was my calling card for years. Stammering. I was asked to do that by the TED organizers, and I couldn't believe it because it's a very big deal, obviously. And so I thought, what's the one thing that I know about? But it became two things: stammering and creativity. So let's put that into one 15-minute TED Talk show, that as you do. I did it, and there was some because I'm a stammerer. I'm very open about it now. It comes and goes in chats like this. I never know when it's going to. But what I have realised, for me as a mature stammerer, is that the more you talk, whether you stammer or don't, the easier speaking becomes. And actually, the way to get through a stammer, the only real cure for my kind of a stammer, is to just talk with anti-stress, so that it becomes a bit more relaxed. The central idea of the talk itself was more about the left and right brain principles of thinking, where the right brain is creative and the left is systemic. And as we start to speak in a creative way from the right, the left will start to interfere with that, to say that's going wrong. And I have a theory that this interference can create the stammer itself sometimes, as in it shuts it down. It's not scientific; it's just kind of observed in myself and in others. So that's where the core of it comes from.
Okay, that's interesting. So as a published author, what themes or subjects do you typically explore in your writing?
It appears to have been cultural theory, cultural criticism. As an ex-journalist, I used to be a music writer as well. I still am from time to time. I review albums and shows and things. I apply that to whatever's happening in the news. With the culture wars that have been happening for the last 10 years, have been very, very interesting, of course, to all of us. So you kind of get yourself pulled down this cultural warrior place. And I try to not be judgmental within that. I just try to describe what's going on, not how I might feel about it, because I like that kind of observation and objectification of a subject. So cultural theory appears to be what I've slipped into over the 10 years. But then when I want to get expressive and things, I go into poetry. I'm a productive poet. I've got that's the next book I'm going to do, is be a book of poetry coming out next year. So I do that when I'm not doing more analytically objective things.
Okay. So can you share some insights into your experience as a lecturer at Istanbul University, and your approach to teaching art and creativity?
Well, yeah, I was only a lecturer for a couple of lectures out there at Istanbul Uni and Curated University, which is another big place. This was at the end of 10 years of teaching English and cultural studies at various English schools in Istanbul. And then 2013, I got these invitations to go and do some proper lecturing at this place. The one at Istanbul was about body language and Turks and British people, how people interact in a different way. And that's a kind of a cultural thing as much as a personal one, where if you're British, if you can come within like two arms outstretched, then you're too close, kind of thing. But then Turks just aren't the same, culturally not the same. They're over your shoulder and everything else. It's totally natural to them. Having to learn to get used to that over 10 years is quite a process. So I did this talk there for an hour or so about that. But the TED talk was then at Kadir Has. So that's what I got invited there for. And in the questions and answers afterwards, people would just go into questions about the English language and how to use this kind of grammar structure and what that word means and things. So that's how it was. The audience themselves were very much white Turks, because there's kind of culture. Turkey has its own culture divides of people who call themselves true Turks, who are secular Ataturkian type Turks, which means the last 100 years, the Turks who are more Greek, coming from the west of that land, consider themselves different from the more Arabic Muslim types coming into the East. And so it has its own culture war going on. It has done for 100 years, but these days it's been more blown up like everything else has. So they got their own thing, which I was able to write about. And in the audience that I had in there, it was all white secular Turks, because the Arabs and things couldn't afford to come there and wouldn't have had the educational grounding to pay attention. So I saw that in front of me out there too.
Okay, that's interesting. So you've won several awards for your work. Which award do you feel like has been the most meaningful, and why?
Well, yeah, I was very happy last year to win the Kussler Award for my book Compelling Speech, The Stammering Enigma. That was really nice. The Compelling Speech is like is an autobiography version of the TED Talk. So it's about stammering, but it's with a Black sense of humor in it. So there's lots of cultural observations with humor involved in that book. Become my most successful. Lots of people have gone for it. And yes, it's very nice for the Kussler people there, who are named after Arthur Koestler, the Hungarian intellectual of the 20th century, who started this foundation in the 1960. And yeah, I was able to get a platinum award from them about this time last year. So that was lovely.
Okay. Can you discuss your experience curating some of the mini festivals like Shy Signs, Blakefest, and Wildfest, and the importance of creating those platforms for artists?
Yeah, that was like an experiment in the middle of the 2010s, from 15 to 17, 2015, 2017. The Chai Signs, they were all about the places I was living at the time. And after just getting back from Istanbul, with the Chai, I was in a place called Chichester here. It's a small English city. And there was a place called the Chichester Inn with this massive garden. So we put on a music and literature festival, because I always have this thing to try and connect up rock and roll and art and literature wherever I can, wherever I am. I don't know why this is, but it's what I do. Art, rock, And so at the Chichester Inn, we had Mr. Mikey Georgeson, who's the singer of David Devant and his Spirit Wife. He was the headliner at the Chai Signs there in 15. And then in 16, I was the co-curator of Blakefest, which was a festival running out of the venue I was running at the time called Seafish on the Sussex coast. And we got Mikey back in the David Devant and his Spirit Wife, a band called Dodgy, who were a big Britpop band back in the 90s and are still going on today and being very staunch fellas. And they're a very large pop band to have got. So we were very proud to have them. And then in 2017, I did the Wildfest in Hove at the Brunswick, the venue in Hove, in their basement and into the garden, which was connected to Oscar Wilde, who had spent lots of summers in Worthing, just down the road. But Brighton and Hove are very open-minded, liberated places. It was about 100 years after, not a bit more than 100 years after the death of Wilde. But I was attempting to connect the art rock on the South Coast with Wilde's legacy in branding and sort of spirit, and that was nice. It was much more spoken word and poetry going on, and lots of independent artists, headlined by Mark Hadley and the Bone Idols, if I remember rightly. And it was another. So these things aren't Glastonbury; they're low key but very niche, and I think boutique festival they call it. But I'm not that it's kind of a bit more rootsy than that. I really enjoyed it, but it's a lot of stress, and I was happy enough to do 3 and then go, right, I've had that experience, and people can ask me to do festival from now on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's understandable. So you've interviewed several notable figures, including Julie Burchill and Ed Harcourt. What do you find most rewarding about those interviews, or maybe what insights have you gained from some of those conversations?
The thing about the Ed Harcourt interview is that I was able to play with him in Istanbul he came out to visit Istanbul. I was part of the team involved in getting him out there, and he invited me onto stage that evening at Babylon in Istanbul, and I was able to play his song Shadowboxing with him, which was unbelievably special when you're a fan like I am and was. He's got a new album out this year, El Magnifico, and it's brilliant. And so I was absolutely delighted to do that. And all day long, we've been going around Istanbul together. I took him to the Hagia Sophia, and he was walking around going, look at this incredible place. Is it a church or a mosque or a museum? And I'm like, I don't know. It's all three all the time, changing each year. So he was like a tourist out there, and he's got an incredible enthusiasm for life. And then so after he went back, I did an interview with him, and I gave it to God is in the TV, I believe, which is a website who published that. And then, yeah, in the same sort of series I was doing of various people, thanks to Facebook and the ease of being able to contact your heroes and things, I got in touch with Julie Burchill, who's a very, very controversial, famous writer here, who just did a very controversial interview back. So it was just like, give her little questions, and she gives me the most mad sort of two-line answers in complete honesty, and she does. The quotes from which people can find online. It's just, it's her own special. I was introduced to the term arsnats from her interview, which is good enough for me, which is just a really good criticism of everyone. Yeah. But the best interview I did, or the most sort of personable one, was Sarah Blackwood of Dubstar, not Sarah, who came to Istanbul, and we had an interview on a balcony of a Sultanahmet hotel. And so we had a really calm, nice conversation there for like an hour, going into the ins and depths of the music industry now, the streaming revolution and how that had affected. She was a big star in the day with Dubstar, and a really lovely woman. And we had a nice time for Indie Istanbul, who are a company in Istanbul I used to work with as well. So that was the most in-depth sit-down one.
Okay. So you've been involved in numerous exhibitions and live events. Is it one that you will always remember more than any other one? Like that's the most impactful to you?
Well, they're all different, of course, which is the only respectful way to answer that one. But one that really does stick out was doing the Gazi Pasha Festival in Antalya, South Turkey, in I think 2009. We were asked to go down there with my Sean Parker band at the time, which was a trio. It had lots of different shapes, Sean Parker band, but it was around me for about for 5 years, various different iterations, Turkish musicians around me. Did the 3 albums in that time, and in 2009, we went down there by airplane. The other guys went down by plane, but I don't like to fly, so I took the bus, taking me like 20 hours and then 2. And I kind of got there and they're drunk already, going, hey, you took ages. And I'm like, I know. Into boiling hot Antalya, and I'm going, oh, this is going to be what am I doing here? I don't know, just some other weird experience. But we came out, we had a swim in the afternoon because the festival paid for a hotel with a pool. Thanks very much. That's good news. And then that evening we went for the set. We were headlining, I think, at about 10 o'clock. We went around the coast in a Jeep or something, got out, and there wasn't a sound check. These festivals, you don't do sound checks. You turn up, get given your guitar and start to play, which is okay. It was that kind of a route. We're like, this is going to... The thing is, we came up the back of the festival, as you do, up the steps, and came out just as the whole thing just got dark. And there were about 20,000 people in front of us, and it was an absolutely huge thing. And we had no idea how much they'd gone for it. We thought we were going to something much more boutique, but it was like 20,000, an amazing time. They were gorgeous, happy, lovely, not like Western audiences, looking with a serious beer. They're like jumping up and down, having a good time. You're like, all right, then, we've got an hour here. So we just cracked out our songs, our sort of new wave rock, and but it was absolutely great. And we were already half cut by then, because the band were just drinkers, and I was too. It's just that I didn't start until much later because of the bus journey, but I was a bit swayed by the time I went on. Anyway, had a great hour, got paid, came back to Istanbul. So that sticks in the mind. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, man, 20,000 people. That's a lot. I can only imagine standing in front of 20,000 people at one time, being the primary focus at that.
Right. I
So
wasn't expecting either.
yeah. So can you discuss the role of creativity in personal growth and self-expression, and how your artistic endeavors have contributed to your own development?
Yeah. Well, I guess that connects to the TED Talk and compelling speech in the sense of I think everything that I do is going towards trying to pull all those strands together. And I guess anybody who's a fan supporter of mine will have tracked that down. I'm into communicative arts. So yeah, the right brain attaching itself to whatever you're trying to put out into the world. And as far as I'm concerned, whether it's in the music, in the writing, or the painting, like behind me, it's like doing any of them, each of them with the same intensity is what matters. So if you can achieve that, then you've achieved whatever you said, and that might totally change in the process of starting it to presenting it. And that's what you need to get used to. I'm a stubborn character and quite determined kind of character, but what I've learned from the creative side is to let that go as much as you possibly can, whilst keeping a focus on what you want to achieve, but not being fixed by that. Just kind of trying to ride it until you get there. And that's the lesson of the maturity, I guess, because in the past it would be about rushing too much to get something done and go, I've done that. Now it's about trying to enjoy the ride until you're there, and then you go, oh, I've done it, and because I'm here. And it's a much better way to stay cheerful, but you only do it because of having done a bunch of things before. So it's not a thing you can invent. You just you've got to go through it to know it, and once you're there. I'm not quite sure if I answered you correctly, but I tried to have a crack at it.
No. I mean, I definitely understand. It's with things like that, like you said, you don't want to rush into something. You want to kind of take more of your time and try to get it done instead of just rushing just to say you did it. But what I would say, actually, let me see. I'm sorry, I was pulling up the questions and I kind of got thrown off of where I was at because my daughter called me at the time. So we're just gonna go to this question here. So can you share your experience being featured in the Sky Arts documentary and how you approach representing your work on such a big platform?
That was we were contacted at the venue I was talking about earlier in 2016, Seafish, which had a big interest in Mr. William Blake, who's a writer artist in Sussex, about 300 years ago, and the Blakefest that we did that year that I mentioned was revolving around his spirit of creativity. Okay. So the things that we were doing there were inspired by him, and a producer at Sky Arts happened to be making a documentary about Blake, who's one of the accepted historical cultural figures that the mainstream press choose to pick on each year here in Britain. He's like Shakespeare, Blake, Oscar Wilde, Dickens. People like this, they tend to every couple of years do another documentary on, which is great because they're absolutely worth it. And William Blake's an old eccentric, and he was fighting against the Industrial Revolution, which he saw as destroying a spiritual way of life back in the day, which is kind of a thing that we all live through these days with woke. But he was one of, you can say, much before that, and in a much more meat and potatoes kind of way. But he did such beautiful poetry. I'm a lot more into his poetry than his paintings, which are a bit too hyper realist for me. But the poetry like to Tiger and things like this are the songs of innocence and the songs of experience are very much about our entire conversation today. He had a gift for simplification and for the beauty within that. Just to talk about Blake, and this Sky Arts producer wanted to talk about it, so she came down. Their team came down to the Blakefest they recorded the Deborah Rose, who was one of our performers that day, doing Tiger Tiger, and I think they recorded Dodgy and some of the other acts as well. And they took us into the back garden. I talked about as much as I knew about Blake at that point, which is much less than I do now. But my co-director talked a lot about him. She was much more passionate about him. And thing is, I've never actually seen the thing back because I don't watch TV anymore. But I'm told that it's out there and it's fine. But so it was good to have done it. Just I haven't actually seen it.
Okay, I understand. So, so you've been published in various prestigious publications. What's been the most challenging aspect of navigating the publishing world as a writer?
Well, just like with any other job, 95% of what you throw at the wall doesn't go anywhere. So, I don't know about in the States, but here is applying for anything in the creative world is just a massive test of resilience. You see what's going to work. Sometimes you get lucky. It's all about persisting because people chuck back all the time. It's not on them to know that you've had a bunch of books and things out. It's just you have to put all these things into being fuel and to being knowledge for whatever you're going to do next. And once you have worked them, to know who comes back being decent, having integrity, being polite. Not that polite should matter too much, but it does in the digital world, doesn't it? You want to have something nice going on in the experience, especially if the experience goes wrong. At least they've been polite, Right. So it's just all of those usual disappointments. But then the 5%, the things do go right. You get the thing into this magazine, into that paper, and it's like, yes, that's worked beautifully, But a lot of the time, it's only your own persistence that actually makes it happen, and very little luck from there are parts of luck, don't get me wrong, there are parts of luck, like the Gazi Pasha Festival was a bit of luck, as was going to Istanbul. So I mean, you just have to follow your nose and keep going. And the reasons that people don't go for your work are so many, you have no idea what they might be. It can be it's not right for this project. They might not actually be into your stuff or into you. I think that's pretty rare. It's just about that's not right for them right at that time, and they can't be bothered to go into it with you at that point. So any young creative getting battered by all this because they're so often sensitive, but get over that, because they are just business minded at the end of the day, seeing if your little thing works for their little thing right now, and that's all it is.
Right. So basically, you should be more persistent. And it may not be that your work is not good enough, but it just may not be the right timing. So if you be persistent, maybe when they're doing their next project or next whatever, then they can feature your work or whatever the case may be.
That's exactly, Alex. And it's like, and whatever you do, don't chuck anything away. Keep it all in files in the places, because then what you're doing is building. It's the building of experience and material, and all artists should have that behind them. It's okay to say, everything I just go on to the blank page next time and nothing matters. I don't really think that's not how I work. I have worked like that in the past, but now I like to build up this mountain of things behind me, a legacy. And because, of course, in the digital world, we all have a legacy now, and you might as well curate that to your best advantage and to what's actually the most representative. Nothing wrong with that, and the tech gods have given us this ability now to do that. So that's all right. It's just don't automatically think that the gatekeepers hate you because they're ignoring you. They're just busy, and there's lots of people coming at them. Because I've also been a gatekeeper, so I know from both sides.
Right. So okay. So how do you approach collaborating with other artists or creatives? And what insights have you gained with collaboration?
I'm a very keen collaborator when the collaborator is nice and open. In the past, I've tended to be the most daring, and they sort of turn around and go, "We can't do that. What are you on about?" I'm like, "I don't know. Have we tried?" And that's actually can be quite a challenge to anybody else. So I'm usually the more, and that can quickly turn into, it looks like I've got control of the project. But it just means that I've got an open imagination and I go forward and try to encourage other people to come along with that with me. Collaborations a little bit more sort of thin on the ground these days. If you're in a band, you're automatically collaborating with other musicians. So that happens from here to there. There's an engineer to work with here, or a songwriter there, or a producer. Which the last time I worked significantly with a collaborator was 2015 with Etos, but that was an email relationship. But he was giving me the tracks, and I was giving him the lyrics, and he was editing it and producing it all together. Then afterwards, I put the presentation and the artwork in to the album that we produced that year, 2015. Ninja Lit, it was called. So it was satisfying, but I only met the guy twice. So it was that kind of a collaboration too. It can be very digital and remote, as we're used to now.
Right. Yeah. Especially you want to collab with someone. Let's say they live 8 hours, 10 hours away, or something like that. We all have lives. We all have to work. So trying to be able to meet up with them in person is very difficult. So a lot of times, just doing something and then emailing it over, and then that's kind of like the fast way, fast track it anyway.
Exactly, and you've got to be practical, don't you? And like get things done as best and quickly as you can, but with as much kind of quality still attached. Yeah.
Exactly. So, can you? Well, actually, what role do you feel like community and support system play in nurturing and sustaining artistic endeavors?
That sounds like the management speak to me. I don't know what does that mean, Alex? Can you translate it?
So more so, okay. So your friends and family, and close fans or anything like that. How does that community? How does those being a community and supporting you play in sustaining you being as artistic as you are to want to keep going, basically?
Right. You mean audience?
Yeah.
I know what you mean. In the Facebook years, it was very cool to get all that going. You get your thousands of friends, and then they become not your friends, but people who are into what you do. And then on the X platform now, it's much more lively. There's that these people don't have to be your friends; they're just into how you communicate or your stance or whatever. So you kind of gather all these characters from around the world over that. Is that a community? I suppose it is, like a fan-based group.
Yeah, it would be a community because it's people that you have access to, So
right, yeah, okay, sure. We're often encouraged by the gods of tech to reach out to your friends and family, see if they want to buy this album or book. And it only took me a couple of times of doing that to go, that's not very fair. There's no reason why my family should have to buy my book just because I'm related to them or they feel sorry for me. So I only did that a few times. Say, well, do you fancy this? They did actually go for it, but something about it feels a bit wrong. I don't go for that. And basically, I think the relationship I have with the community is very different that I have with the public or the artistic purchases of the public. A community will support in the stammering possibly area. There's a bit more community minded because that is about an emotional support place. But the art part is just about asking questions, going, I don't want anyone's support. I don't want any support in life in general. I just want to ask questions and to paint pictures and to make people think, either in a beautiful way or in an intelligent way. Support is it's tricky because they don't owe me anything. So I kind of come from that individualistic stance. It's only because it's these things can be phrased in a certain way, which is too progressive for me. It's too inclusive and all this stuff. I prefer things to be a bit more, artistically rambunctious, which isn't how the language goes at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I understand that. But I always tell people, support isn't always spending money or donating money. Support is just, if I make a Facebook post about my art, to share that for me, because now you're helping put it in front of another set of audience, because me and you may not have the same friends on Facebook per se, since we were talking about Facebook. Me and you may not have all the same, 2,000 or 3,000 friends. You may have another 2,000 or 3,000 that I don't even know. So if you share my work, then somebody may like it, and somebody may want to, come and find me, and they may actually want to support me, or maybe they just want to follow my journey, or so on and so forth. So.
Quite right, of course, and that's the great thing about the podcast revolution is it's the connecting of audiences where you wouldn't know who's going to reach out to whom, and that is true and cool. I don't know how much that works, but it's definitely fun to try, and it's always good to try and reach out anyway. I'm a reach out kind of bloke, and yeah, I suppose when you put community in that sense, I understand a bit more what you mean. I guess it's a new territory for all of us, isn't it? Because for me anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So let's see. What do you feel has been the most rewarding aspect of your artistic journey so far? With everything combined, like what continues to motivate you and inspire you? Because I know you said before that, when it comes to your art, you want to paint it in a beautiful way. So what motivates you to want to keep going and keep doing it?
That's a big and good question. I think after you've achieved a couple of things, like the TED Talk or that Turkish festival or getting an award, these things are very nice and they're helpful, and they give you a bit more of a that's done. So what's next? Once you've got a bunch of that underneath, there's less anxiety about what I should do, and a bit more fun in what I'm doing. And I suppose they call that the flow. So I think right now, post-COVID and post various other things, I'm in a flow state. I don't mind that bit of jargon. I think it's quite appropriate for here. I'm very anti-jargon. That's part of my problem, but it's how I am as a writer. But the flow state is really descriptive of being in the right place and being happy with what you're doing at that time, and then going, there it is, and it's done. And so in that sense, everything that I've done over the last couple of years, I've been super proud of, because it's I got a lot of things done over the lockdown period, and lots of preparations and prep for future projects and all these kind of things. Now I'm seeing them coming to fruition, seeing what works with parts of the public and what doesn't, and particularly the visual art these days. I'm really, really enjoying visual art. Just this month, I've got a piece on David Bowie and Kate Moss in De Lezen magazine here in the UK. I don't know if it's international, but it's a very glossy style mag, and it's delightful for them to include a couple of my pieces. So that's that kind of thing. I enjoy getting my work in proper publications. I very much.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely. That's one of those things that you gotta, whenever you see it, it just makes you feel good. Like, okay, yeah, like, hey, I'm making a difference, or I'm, somebody's liking what I'm doing. So, that definitely helps motivate you to keep going. So, can you discuss, maybe any challenges or roadblocks that you went through, or that people can go through if they expect to try to pursue a creative career like yourself?
It's been 30 years of one massive block interspersed with tiny chinks of positivity and light along the way. Our world enjoys creativity and that kind of thing, but it doesn't support it in the way that, if you're already successful, if you've got lucky earlier on, or if you're that kind of a charisma, like a lot of our heroes, they've got there and they've done that, and you look at them and go, why can't I do that? Well, they've already done it, and it's not going to happen twice in the same way. So you've got to carve your own way, and if anybody likes your carving, they will then go for the carving, and that's the important thing to learn, is to go for your own voice. But it's okay to imitate us in the early days in art or music or anything else. Hip hop wouldn't have come to what it is without a good 15 years. I'm a big hip hop fan. A good 15 years of people working that and copying each other, and the sampling they did back then, entirely new art form of taking old sounds and making new ones out of them, and it's still fascinating, And it took a lot of street level engineering to get that to a really, really excellent place, and now it's in a whole other place of billions of dollars and lots of and all the media stories that go along with it. So the other side of it is this big beast problem. So the whole thing is fraught with difficulties, and so what I've done is to turn that into art in the writing. So in the writing, there's not always a lot of joy in there, but there's lots of analysis of exactly that question, like what's the nature of fame, the nature of success, and when you're living in Musk's world, which is pretty damn cool than before Musk's world, you're like, what are the pros and cons of that? And we can add any of the tech gods to Musk to create the place that we're in.
Okay. So just a couple more questions before we get out of here. Can you share your vision for, any future projects or anything that you have coming out?
Right. Well, I've just done the Delicate Balance of Reason book, which is published 2 weeks ago, and it's doing quite nicely. Adventures in the Culture Wars is the subtitle, so it gives you an idea of what's. It's very much this conversation on a bigger scale. So that's this book just done. There was the magazine I was talking about that we've just been in. We're glazing, and there are some other things being published this year. But the next main thing will be a book of poetry called Panopticon, which is about the justice system, but not anything in specific, just about the work that I've done in that over the last 5-10 years. So that'll be coming out in this book of poetry that's we've very much honed over lockdown too, either end of this year or beginning of next, with LR Price publications. So I'm I've yet to see what that's going to be like, but I'm looking forward to it happening.
Okay. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience, whether it be about your journey, insights, or anything like that before we wrap it up?
I think your excellent questions have got to the nub of them quite quickly. It's quite interesting to see how I think being explained in how you put the questions. So I think this whole thing about going with it rather than giving yourself too many blocks and affirmations. The problem with affirmation thinking is that you're thinking yourself into a reality that's over there and going to try to achieve that, which takes away from the actual pleasure of being wherever you are and just going with that until you've achieved something which exists anyway in your subconscious. So slightly pretentious way of saying go with the flow,
Yeah, that's right. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time out. I'm glad we were able to get this set up to have you come on here and talk about your life, your journey, so that way the fans can, they can see another interesting person, and they can, they can go and they can look at your work and everything like that. So I'll put all your information in the description, so that way they can go and, check you out. They can find you. They can see whatever you have to offer, whether it's, purchasing your books or looking at your art or listening to your music, things like that. So, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time out. I'm glad to have you. And everybody that's watching, you guys have just watched another episode of All in All with Alex, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Wow.